Welcome to Philly Coco Presents Side Project Spotlight, episode 47. This is developers' journey to making cool stuff. I'm Kotaro.
I'm Steve.
And I'm Aaron.
And we are Philly Coco, a Philadelphia-based Coco Heads community focused on Apple development. That primarily, but not exclusively, means iOS, Mac, tvOS, watchOS, and visionOS development. Philly Coco's true desire is to take you higher on your own developer journey. All right, well.
Did not get a streak of perfect readings.
You know, somewhere I was like, I like mentally was like, oh, I know I'm gonna flub it up, and I flubbed it up, but that's okay. That's the beauty about just doing it in one take. Is just live with the results, and you get better.
Indeed.
Cool. So what do we have for today, Steven?
Today, we have some progress updates on our visionOS baby steps. I guess we're going to talk a little bit about the current dumpster fire that is the beta status of everything, and then I guess the main topic will be about reading the tea leaves about Apple's plan for what they expect for the apps coming forward. We talked about this a little bit before. We're going to go a little more in depth, and then we have some time and ideas. We'll present some bad app ideas at the end.
Sure. So how is the beta program going?
Do we want to start with the beta status or the visionOS status?
Sure. I think, sorry, Steven, you
kind of related, but
you've made the best. You made the best progress so far out of us, which is sadly tough.
That's sad. It is sad because I usually have the least amount of time. So no, I did actually the assignment that we were supposed to do, which was I took a photo that I captured the other day at a concert, and I loaded it up. I just put in an asset catalog to start with, but I loaded it up into a window, and then I created a little button, not the right way, just the stupid way of like an overlay button on top of it. But I made a little button, and when you click the button, it loads a CI filter that pixelates the image and toggles it back and forth. Really simple, really straightforward. Took way too long to get that to work because we'll talk about because the betas are garbage. And so I was doing this in beta 4, and first of all, it doesn't work at all in preview. Like, doesn't do anything. I'm like, I thought it was broken. I thought I was doing something wrong.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, but you had to load it in the simulator to get it to work. The simulator has like a different idea of how close I want to be to the thing that I'm loading. So to figure out how to tell visionOS to back off a little bit, it's like right in my face but it's in the preview, it's the correct distance, and then like when you open the simulator. But anyway, it works. I mean, it's simple. It's a little janky. I have to like juggle UI image and an image because it's Swift UI.
Right. Yeah.
And it's based on some code from of course Hacking with Swift. I think so. Simple, but that was the goal, and I didn't have time. I was going to add like controls or something, and then you said put it onto what is the little thing called the little toolbar?
So put the ornament. Yeah,
ornament. That's right. I need to put on an ornament.
An ornament.
Yeah, and I need to like add
and
so I need to add a photo picker and I put in an ornament, make it more visual. One of the things that was weird, I kept messing around with. I was trying to put it into a window just to see what the window materials would be, and I was trying to create. I was trying to create like a card like interface, but my Swift UI code was just ignored. Like I would try, and it just wouldn't. A code that I've used in an iOS app, really simple, like with a Z-axis, make a rounded rectangle, put stuff on top. I couldn't get any of that to appear, and I guess I'm just doing it wrong because it's visionOS. But I don't, or it's, I can't tell. See, this thing I can't tell. We'll get into the beta talk. I can't tell what's a bug and what's my like ignorance of visionOS because I'm trying to like figure it out.
One suggestion about that window pane, like right in your face on the start. At least for the time being, you can check the offset of that window. You can set the offset Z negative 200 to start or 100 to start. That'll push it back in the Z axis.
Okay, Z negative, yeah.
Because now offset modifiers, majority of them have a Z parameter that you can add, that you can use now that offsets it. I think this is strictly around visionOS, but that option's there for you. So if you want to take the whole window from like I'm assuming you put it in like the content, either inside your content view or whatever. You can say, okay, put this window when I call it and set it to this distance or this position. So now this is where everything sort of gets really challenging for people who are new to 3D game development. It's like now you're working with an extra dimension.
I mean, you are, but when you're working with the window-based stuff, it's pretty straightforward. It's just the thing that I thought was weird was I couldn't get it to display like a rounded rectangle inside itself. I'm like, but I saw, I don't know why I couldn't get it to render. Like it just wouldn't do anything, and I'm like, what am I doing wrong here? Because I saw some of the demo apps have, what looks like slightly more advanced, layouts with and I'm like, why doesn't it do anything? Maybe it's because I had an image involved, and images are weird.
Oh, you wanted to you wanted to clip the rounded corner.
Yeah, and I was trying. I was doing. I wanted it on a card. I was trying to make it like.
Oh,
I was trying to make it like just look like it has padding and it's on a card. And then I was also trying to make a row underneath the main image with the idea would be you could pick images from that potentially.
Oh, yeah.
Right, but
yeah.
every time I tried to do it, it would just F up the whole entire thing. Like the main image would then not lay out the proper height. Like everything was it was weird, and I don't know. I don't know what I was doing wrong, or if it was just a bug. But I have to go. I gave up on that, and just to get it to work. So I'll go back to it. But the idea was to have maybe like your images on the bottom, if possible. Because I'm trying to think about how would I make like an image editing interface that's not photos because it's already in there. I should probably just look and see if Photos works. But I was trying to think of like what's something simple you could do. You just like apply filters or something.
The thing that Photos, I don't know if the Photos app in the simulator has this as well as they do in the demos, but like they do stuff where like you can like they're like moving all those photos in like 3D space.
Yeah.
And like outside the window pane.
Yeah, I mean I think that would be cool. So when I'm thinking about images, because that's what I tend to do a lot of photography. I'm trying to think if I'm in a 3D space, what's useful in a 3D space? Well, positioning the different photos is one thing that's potentially useful for like processing them visually. So one thing you do in like Lightroom is different ways of kind of marking images as different status. You can flag things, put stars on them, you can add colors on them. But when you're in a 3D space, one thing you could do, just like you could do with like Post-its on a wall, is you can visually, like you can physically have them in a certain location. So for processing things, it could be useful sometimes to be able to be like, here's all my process photos are in like this little pile over here, and like you could just hit a button, and have it like reorganize all your stuff. Could be kind of cool. I think visual layouts of stuff. I think something useful, kind of the thought maybe behind the card thing I was trying to do is, maybe I want to make like a Trello style type of app too, where I just and I want to be able to stick stuff in a 3D space and and lay them out in columns or something like that. That's like another potential avenue to go with. And one of the cool things I like
a drawer or like like the old school like. How like they would hang film.
Yeah, I mean, you could hang film. That would be a cool way of just doing. That would just be a cool way of editing the photo. So it's like you could just edit the photo and then stick it to dry, as it were, and like that could be a cool thing. I mean, that has retro apps.
Darkroom simulator.
Yeah, well, yeah. Why not a darkroom simulator? That could be part of our bad app ideas. But they had those. Maybe
is
they still
really
do.
A bad idea? Or is it
I don't know.
A bad app idea?
We asked Rich what he thinks.
But think about it though. We had those.
Shout out to you, Rich.
We had those apps, those photography apps, years ago that were trying to mimic old, disposable cameras and stuff, and it was Hipstamatic, comes to mind as one of these clips. Right. And the whole thing was that the nostalgia kick of the different types of mimicking a film. And so, yeah, why not? Why not have like a virtual darkroom in fully immersive virtual darkroom, I guess could be one
You
mode. You could just turn the dial.
you want to turn it down to do a color? Was it a burn or a dodge?
I don't know, but
old school version.
I'm just thinking like you could have your
How
photo
much light
editing
you
app.
expose? How much light you expose in like an actual virtual like way?
I mean, we could do it that way. That sounds painful, but I was thinking more like just as
painful.
For fun. Like you could be doing normal stuff with your edits, and then if you want to, you can turn the crown, and then just go into an immersion, go into a full space where it's like literally just a dark room with a red light, and then your pictures are hanging on a virtual line for no reason other than just as cool, and you have to just wait for them to develop.
Why don't we turn into a horror movie
bad
game?
app idea.
I know this is a bad app idea.
We just have like some horror movie moments of just like some Japanese horror movie. Like
we're like getting ahead of ourselves because there's so many good ideas with bad app ideas. But anyway, so I did get the image to Pixelate, and I have plans to add more features. And I said I'm kind of playing around with the idea of what is useful in a 3D environment, like, or an AR environment relating to photography editing. Because I mean, we don't know anything about how to take photos with this thing yet. We know that technically the demo they showed was a button that would do like a 3D capture or something, but no one's tried that yet. Yeah. So I'm thinking like you have photos, like what are we going to be able to do? Obviously, you could just do the normal things you do now, like just have a 2D window and just have controls. But I'm like, is there something else you could do to make workflows more interesting? For instance,
I guess one question comes to mind for me is like, what is the current workflow of any professional, whether it be prosumer or freelance professional photographer, right? At that level, at that sort of scale of like, what do they do on the daily or whatever when they process their work? They take all their photos and they process their work. What does that workflow look like?
I mean, you have to take all your photos and get them off your cards, put them into something. A lot of people like myself use Lightroom, but there's other products to do this. You have to. There's different. Some people use software that will automatically tag them and stuff like that. But let's just say use Lightroom. That's a lot of photographers I know just use Lightroom. You have to import it somewhere, so onto like a hard drive or NAS or something. Then in Lightroom, you can do different things to organize them. I've been playing around with this like scheme lately, where I put them into these collections, and collections are like a virtual concept. So all the files stay where they are, but then you can kind of have subsets of them be like available in a collection. So I've been creating these collections of like all the photos, and you have to like pick them a certain way. So I have like a multi-step process. A lot of people do, where it's like you go through them and you're just kind of doing a first pass, and then you have like maybe another pass or two passes where you're just filtering it down to the very best things that you want to edit. Then you have to go through the editing process, which takes a while. To touch up each photo depends on the type of photo and your style and what you want to do, but you have to always do that if you're doing it professionally. You're going to be taking raw files, photos, so they all have to be edited in order to look good. And so you're going to edit all these things. Then you're going to have to export them into the appropriate dimensions and sizes for things. Like I have some presets for like quote unquote archiving if I want to have the full res version, and also like for Facebook and social media. And then of course, if you're professional, you have some way, and Adobe has the stuff built in. There's other products where you have to put the photos somewhere to deliver them to a client. Now, I don't usually get involved in that because I'm not usually doing client work, but you can. Then you have to put them on some web page or share it from Lightroom or something into to a website where someone can maybe pick them or buy them or whatever. There's like, but the main process is you take the photos off your camera. You have to pick them, then you have to edit them, then you have to export them. That's like the core steps of any photography flow.
I'm actually kind of curious about the idea then, if you have a grid of photos, let's just say you're looking at a grid view or a lazy grid view. One thing that they talk about in these user experience or principle, I forgot it was principle or design for spatial view or spatial experience, is like the idea of having a focus, like you're looking at something, right? Basically a glorified highlight state, and then a long focus state, right? Where I think you could think of it almost like a tap down gesture or a long tap gesture or something.
So
like
when
that,
you're
where,
staring at something,
where you're staring at it for a long period of time, it becomes sort of like in a glorified way. Maybe if you look at something for long enough, maybe the metadata comes up.
oh yeah, right.
Maybe
Forgot
it
about
starts
this.
to to zoom in a little bit, like zoom in more, so you can kind of see it and be like, and then
That's cool.
or
So
maybe like if you take your focus off of it, it'll shrink back down, right? So maybe it'll start to grow.
You know what? That's a great idea
a little
because
bit, and then you just and you just move on.
That's a great idea because when I'm in Lightroom looking at a whole bunch of photos, there's like a slider. You can make them bigger or smaller in the grid view, or you can, obviously click them to open them up, or you can make them all full screen, go one at a time, which is often what you do. But that's nice. That's a nice hybrid approach where you could maybe have them at a comfortable size. You can see a bunch of them, but then you can kind of like just stare at it, and it gets bigger, so you can get a little more detail.
Even without pointing gestures, right? You can have like on your lap or whatever. You can do like sort of like the same type of like zoom in, zoom out of your grids, like increase the size of your grid space by just doing the pinch the zoom type of mechanic.
I feel like this could be great.
And then you can long stare at, or like you can focus on things.
Yeah, I want to call it long stare.
Long stare. I don't know how you do that in the simulator.
I don't know what it's actually called. I just want to call it a long stare now.
I mean, your eyes become the cursor, right? So like in visionOS. So I mean, I can't imagine how much of a strain that's going to be on your eyes. It'd be like maybe you get used to it, but that's got to be like it's like, come on, Apple. Like it has to be really good for it to like really get back that you're looking at one specific grid item, right?
Well, that's why they have their like minimum size for things.
Like
60, I think.
It's like 60. Yeah, like the hit target has to be 60 for sure. But I think probably the view size probably is something similar. I would agree. Yeah. So if you can get it like a grid of maybe like 60, like minimum width of 60, let's say, you can make the aspect ratio of scale to fit, or like whatever, like to fit whatever the way Lightroom does it and how they lay out their grids. Just do something similar, and then like a uniform grid, and then you just have you would have your cursor in the simulator's case. Make sure that it can highlight, like as it goes around, it's highlighting each one as like a lighter version of that photo. And then if you keep the cursor on a photo, begin to grow the photo to a certain size that's reasonable. That could
be there's times where there's multiple photos. You take in a burst, and you got to pick one of them, and they're all very similar, so you have to look at them in a larger size. And so normally when I go through the photos, I'm going through them all at a large scale, and I'm just going like click one next, and I'm just like flagging them if I want them to go to the next stage, or I might say if they're blurry or something, hit the like the other flag button that says that these can be deleted. And but I'll be doing that, and then later on I'll go through them again. I'll be giving them like 5 stars or whatever if I think they're really good for editing. But you go through them real fast. Like you should
do 5 stars like a ninja star, good gesture.
Yeah. So there's I feel like we keep coming to 2 different kinds of approaches to the visionOS version of stuff. There's like the reasonable features, like will this be more useful in some way, or how do we adapt the actual feature into a visionOS space? And then there's just like, what kind of thing can we do that's just fun and ridiculous? And I think that you're going to have both of those kind of things. Like you have like the Fruit Ninja style, gameplay in your photo editor, and then you're going to have like the actual like Adobe Lightroom will probably be ported or something, and you'll just have both.
I would be very surprised if on maybe when the actual hardware gets released, maybe about a month in, if there's not like a CocoaPod Swift package that will do a very Swift UI style of gesture, like gesture recognizer.
Oh,
like third party. Yeah. Like I'd be very surprised if a third party doesn't come up with something like that.
If they haven't already started. Us all. Yeah, I mean,
just to save us all the heck of like trying to build our own.
Yeah, indeed, because I think that's very obviously going to happen, because if you look at like the hand skeletal tracking that the example that Apple gives you. I think we talked about it before. It's just terrible. It's just this manual code to describe the hand positioning.
I mean, I worry in a sense like Apple had made a similar mistake, I would say, in when they built Sprite Kit and Scene Kit at the time. They really were not familiar with game developers' development environments in the same way that Unity was very well versed. I mean, these are all hard-earned battles, but like game developers, are not the type that like really enjoy programming, if that makes sense. Like we do it because we have to, not because we want to. And so we need the sort of a GUI to sort of kind of provide just the framework to create the scenes, which Apple can do, but it's like not as feature rich as Unity is. And that's partially why I'm assuming Apple was like, all right, well, if you want to, if you're not,
you need to do the work,
right? Because like, when game developers, it's kind of like a passion driven thing. So it like a lot of times it's like, I just want to make this most coolest Pong game ever, right? And so you do all the,
that's a good app idea right there. Someone's gonna make
that's
Pong.
that's not been, well, that's actually
vision tennis.
But in order to do that, right, you have to programmatically, you can set all your assets in the
pickleball.
Pickleball, yeah,
with your hand.
You can probably set up the assets in the scene in Reality Kit or Reality Kit Composer, Reality Composer Pro, right? But you can't. It would be hard to create the interactions very cleanly. You'd almost have to be very like, you'd have to set the scene up, but then you'd have to like program everything else. Right. Whereas I think everything in Unity is very strictly like, I create a script of component, like each component has a certain script of like action items that they do, and like if I trigger this collision, do this and so forth. There's just much more built-in kind of. I'm trying to like express this in a way that makes sense, but it's almost like it's kind of like a backwards going approach to making a quote unquote app.
It kind of reminds me of the like Visual Basic, right? Where you had this GUI for all the main UI controls and stuff, and then you'd go like behind it, there would be a code behind just for that control, and then you'd make some modifications there to adapt the control to your project, but you would just be dragging and dropping and for the overall layout. And in game development, I'm just saying you need to have some higher levels of abstractions to work with besides writing C# code, because this isn't like the 90s anymore, where where, and so like I mean even then they built their own tools. I mean to do that, you always need that, because can you imagine trying to build like a 3D game level just with code? Like, I mean, you're going to build a tool that's going to let you build the 3D. So Apple just has never, you're saying, provided the best abstractions in certain places, of the like the pipeline.
I mean, they tried. I mean, I'm not saying that they haven't.
I mean, I said tried. I'm just not sure they've done well.
It's
because I've always heard you complain about it.
It's like low rent. Like for Sprite Kit, it was almost like low rent Flash.
Oh my god!
But it was all in Xcode.
Yeah.
Right. So like, if you're coming from if you like, I don't know what it is about the sort of gaming community in general, but there's always sort of this like underlining like feeling like, if I know we're not the priority, we don't like we're going to go somewhere else. Like if I know like gaming isn't a fundamental priority of the development experience, like I don't have time to waste. I need a tool that is committed to me versus like more like a tack on experience.
So
oh, go ahead.
So I'm saying you think Unity is going to be providing that for a lot of the more 3D game-like experiences, and not just for games, right? You think Unity would be useful for any kind of app that just needs more of an immersive experience, especially like the immersive spaces, right?
That's where I think you would have a better chance of making a successful app when it goes into immersion mode. Like I think you can still use a combination of like the window traditional, like a very flat window experience of like, here's a pane and here's like maybe some basic controls that you're interacting with. But the moment I need to be in immersion mode, the moment I need to like be in a 3D space and have, all these sort of spatial experience, and I want to experience some, whether it be spatial audio in unique ways, particle, like complex particle effects or visual interactions, or even like gesture interactions, that there are better support in that environment, I feel, than like if I wanted to have 3D robot hands. Like it's easier to implement them. Right. I think that's where that's where I remembered that demo. I think it was even a WWDC demo of like how like the integration with Unity to create sort of a more immersive experience.
Yeah.
Whereas if you want to have that Minority Report glove, but not necessarily have to like completely buy the glove, you can do it virtually, and then it'll just still recognize your gestures anyway.
And if you're going to implement this, though, you're not going to be doing the current beta.
No,
because that's a mess. So, I don't know. We were talking about types of like visionOS apps a little bit here, and so right now the betas are still such a mess. They haven't really changed since last time we talked about it.
I don't know, Aaron. I haven't really touched much. I don't know if Aaron, you have at all.
No, I saw they didn't release a new visionOS beta, so they updated Xcode and the other platforms, but not visionOS. So kind of seems like it's still in the same state it was last time.
Yeah. So what ends up happening is like it just doesn't build for us if we do the vision. Like if we used any of the demo apps from Apple will not build and run with the new version.
And as I said, I think I even just creating file new, it crashes half the time when I try to start up the simulator.
Yeah,
it does not all the time, but like sometimes I'll just start. The first time I tried to run it, it just kind of didn't work. You're like, what? So
I mean,
it is what it is. It's pretty early.
Yeah, this is the challenge of betas with Apple. Like it seems like fairly recently, I would say maybe about 3 years going, 4 years even. There's been like one beta that crashes everything.
Yeah. And, this beta seems to be a lot around Swift data. And I wonder if Swift data was like not as baked as it was presented, or did they just change their mind about how some of the macros are implemented in significant ways? Because that's what broke, like some of the macros it uses, right? Observable, I think specifically, was breaking things. They changed something with the macros, and it's still broken. And I got the feeling that the beta, they're holding back, as you said, because it's ahead of the visionOS, so they're probably just getting together the dev kit application process or whatever they're doing, and they'll release the next beta will be much more feature complete. I don't know what's going on. You never know what's going on with beta cycles, but it's almost August and we've gone through 4 betas, and they're still telling us to use beta 2 for the visionOS stuff. That's hard.
It's a fair point. No, go ahead.
Oh, just the whatever Vision Pro hardware isn't going to be released till next year, so it's kind of already behind the iOS release in the fall.
Is this going to mess us up though? Like the iOS, like because is Xcode just going to be unstable jank because of the visionOS stuff in there, or like what? I don't know.
I mean, it does build and run for every other platform. So if I target iPad or if I target iPhone, it's fine. It's just visionOS. It just
Yeah. Well, that's okay. So, but speaking of visionOS, so the betas are kind of still messed up. Have fun. Use beta 2 if you need to compile any of the visionOS stuff.
Yeah.
And just stay tuned. Hopefully, by the time you're hearing this, more information has come out about the dev kit application process, whatever that's going to be, and maybe there'll be another beta.
Say, I've been trying to focus more around the other tech, namely around Swift data and or some of the new animation toolkits that Apple's provided. I do want to get better at figuring out the sort of glass.
Are you talking about
effects background
in visionOS or just in general?
Just in general. some of the new sort of modifiers and backgrounds they've provided as just from an understanding that the use cases for those UI elements.
I think we were talking about this before the show started, that probably, and I think we mentioned this last time, that Apple probably expects most of the initial apps to be primarily window-based, which means that a lot of the Swift UI updates that you would use in an iOS app or iPad app apply, at least to some degree, to the visionOS app you're going to build. And considering that like Vision, this is not going to be till next year. You have hardware, so if you actually want to make a brand new app, you should probably think about like an iPad app or probably an iPad app if you want to go to Vision, right? Because I mean, iOS apps will go, but it's like they're really seemingly want you to you want to do an iPad app, right? Because an iPhone app is going to be stuck like vertical, right?
Yeah.
So you want an iPad app to get the full kind of portability. And, and it does feel like that's where Apple's pushing their whole platform initially is into, window-based apps, not immersion. They keep downplaying. It's not they downplay immersion, I guess. It's that it's like they always start with a window app, and they say you could incrementally add this additional immersion, but all their examples are more focused on window-based stuff, right? Like even in their demos from WWDC, like the dad in the kitchen is not going to be in a completely immersive space if he has to make toast for his child and then give the toast to the child while wearing the goggles. And terrifying scene. That is terrifying. He's like, here you go, and it's just this, like, giant fake eyes right in your face. I don't know. I'm sorry. I maybe they look better in person, but like the eyes thing is still a little uncanny valley. But so I think that's good. So the Swift UI skills will translate.
I look forward to the day when you have two people in the same room. They have it'll be on TikTok or something. Two people in the same room looking at each other with their goggles on, and how creepy that'll look.
The thing you wanted to mention about this, Kotaro, was you were talking about SharePlay. You think is going to be like a core part of the visionOS experience. You reading the Apple tea leaves here. And looking at what SharePlay offers and what visionOS offers out of the gate, you're thinking that SharePlay is a core element to it.
Have any of you actually managed to get SharePlay working in general for any like apps or test apps that you've been doing?
I never tried because it was all focused on like you had to have an app and you have to or do it through iMessage or FaceTime or something. And so I don't have friends besides you guys, so. It was
that's not true.
No, I know. No, I never actually tried that. I'm actually much more curious now that the new bump, what is that what we're calling it? The bump feature?
Oh yeah. Oh, that's true. Yeah, the air is it air? It's
that's the AirDrop. AirPlay. What do they call it? The AirDrop, because that can initiate a SharePlay, right? For an app. Mm-hmm. So I'm more interested in that, but no, have you tried? Have you got it working on something?
No, I think Kotaro, we tried some stuff at work a while ago for a prototype,
I'm just so curious.
It was like completely broken. It never seemed to.
Yeah,
trying to sync up some video, and it just kind of never seemed to want to work.
That's funny because that was like the original use case for it. Like FaceTime. You could like I've used it before. I never coded it. I used FaceTime once. I used the SharePlay watching a video once. On my Apple TV, and then someone was on their computer. It was during the pandemic times.
Did it work?
Yeah, it worked actually. Okay. But it was like I think it was through like an iTunes movie or something. So Apple software.
Was it weird?
I mean, it was cool. It was a lot like what we had done before with a website. There was like this what was it called? There was this Netflix based website which would synchronize your video. And he had a little chat. I can't remember what it's called now. But anyway, we did a lot when we were locked in our homes. And so, but this I think we bought the same movie on iTunes. And then I think I initiated at the time. I did it on my phone, and then I think I AirPlayed to my Apple TV or something like that. It was a little weird to get it all set up so I could watch on my Apple TV and have honestly, the SharePlay from my phone.
Honestly, I think one other opportunity for you, Stephen, is if you wanted to try to do an integration with SharePlay to, like, say, for example, you had a client that you wanted to show some features, and maybe the only thing you give the client is not so much editing power, but be able to like overlay using PencilKit to overlay comments, or maybe like circle. I want this in a grid. I want this one. I want this one. I want that one.
Oh, and for then, photos,
right? So to be able to like say, which one do you want, and then maybe they circle it, and maybe what that'll do is like star those by default.
Yeah, like well, old school. Like if you had film, you might do something like that. You might have it on like a light table or something, and then you so then people go through with like a little magnifying glass, and you circle it or something.
Why don't we have a gesture that goes like this, and just
a little circle gesture,
a little circle gesture.
In. Actually, that's pretty cool. But
that's horrible idea, by the way.
But as for SharePlay, you were saying that you think SharePlay is vital because Apple, the idea of visionOS is not, even though all of the marketing material seems to be you sitting alone in your living room, but I think the intention is to have more office. People remotely kind of in the same shared space. They talked about that a lot, but they just didn't do a lot of demos on it, I think. But the idea is like you would come in with your ghostly avatar self or whatever, and you would interact in the same virtual space, just like what Meta proposed to. Let's be fair.
Sure.
But the Apple way. So they're going to do that through, I guess, SharePlay, right? So that's how you set up. So if I had SharePlay, like for the photos thing, if I had SharePlay photos thing, and I had a Photos app, and I said, here is like, let's go through the photos I took of your wedding, which I'm not going to do wedding photography because that's like marriage. But let's pretend you were a wedding photographer and you wanted to share with your client some photos. Or maybe you wanted to go through some photos and you had some questions, like whatever. You can have the photos up, like you can have them up on a giant board, if you wanted to. You could have them, and they could be like at a like a print size, which is something you can't do on a computer. Like the most you could do is somebody has to have a big monitor, or you maybe have a giant iPad in person. But the advantage there is you could see them in high res detail, like the size. Here's a good example. Say you wanted to say, would you like any of these printed? So they could see them literally, quote unquote, as they would look even in their own home as one way.
You can even say, you can even have like a side panel that says, pick a frame.
Yeah, exactly. And you could create the whole thing. You could say, okay, here it is. And then you could literally put it on the wall where the person wants to put it and see what it looks like. Now, and that is one of the things, to be fair to Zuckerberg, that in the initial ridiculous Meta demo about for like a year ago, 2 years ago, sure, that they were kind of saying like stuff like that. But no, that's actually a good use of a SharePlay experience too, because if you wanted to like direct the client in some way, or you wanted to talk and have a conversation about it, and not just maybe you want to make recommendations. Maybe you're an interior designer and you want to offer like different prints of things, and you want to help the client. So maybe it's not a photographer, maybe it's a interior designer, and you've licensed some photos or something you took as part of into one of these systems, and then the interior designer is helping you, like IKEA style, like the IKEA app style, place it in your space. So I think the SharePlay idea is besides for gaming and and entertainment, I think there's some utility there for client relationships.
What you're saying is backseat designing got a lot easier.
Yeah, backseat. Yeah, I in my head I'm trying to think about scenarios where
you're gonna pre-filter a lot of these photos, right?
Yeah. So with photography, I would not. So for me, I mean, the way I do photography is I will pick the photos. Like I'm not going to now sometimes people have this thing where the client, I guess, can pick photos up. Now I don't do that, because it's like if I had a client, which I rarely ever do client stuff, and it's always music stuff, I'm like, look, I will pick the photos. I'll give you the ones I think are good. And then you can do what you want with them. Now I would not, as Aaron, just have someone come in and start like picking and choosing stuff with, like, that's not like part of the whole point of photographer. But I'm thinking of other situations where after I have produced the photos, they are in their finished state. This is either with me or without me. You could go in and you could say, ordering prints is a good example, because you can say these are what what they would look like printed. And this is one of the things this kind of assumes like if you can accurately do the color. So one of the things about prints that I've always found is difficult is I'm never quite sure what it's going to look like when you print it, because it's hard to make sure you have your equipment matches what it's if you're not printing yourself, you have control of the whole pipeline. So I could imagine if you could kind of more or less guarantee with the use the same color profiles and stuff. Maybe
you could use Rich's SDK.
Yeah, exactly. I was thinking of Rich right now. I was like, if you maybe you could you could see kind of like what it look at, because one of the things that visionOS does, like it brings in the real world environment, the lighting conditions, and one of the things that even more simple than like the colors, the choice of paper makes a difference in how a photograph is going to look in an environment. If you pick a very lustery paper, very, very shiny paper, and you have like a lot of light coming in, hitting it, it's going to, have a giant reflection on it. Maybe you don't want that. And so there's different types of paper that are more matte, but then that changes how the photos can look. So,
dude, could you imagine that? Could you imagine you creating materials? So basically that can create the reflectivity, and so or the texture of the material, the roughness ish of it, for lack of a better word. Oh, that's crazy! That would be amazing.
You can't really do this at all with a laptop or an iPad or an iPhone, because you need to have the light data of the real world environment, and you need to be able to mimic, and you need to have like the 3D game kind of engine in order to, and you need to, I guess you need to do like a shader in order to get the right kind of texture and stuff. Yeah.
This particular use case, I feel you don't need something like Unity for. You can get away with doing it in Reality Kit just fine.
Yeah, I think so. I think you're right, because you're talking about like you really need to take like an image and put it on a material, and that's blended with a material, which is more like.
Yeah, I think if you wanted anything that is highly interactive with a lot of dynamic elements in it, like robots or like
games,
custom particle effects, puzzles, or like anything that, especially if it requires like a lot of your gestures to do the interactions. So I guess Beat Saber would be a really good traditional example. If you're using your hands a lot, then where to actually do the interactions, then might be best to save those type of experiences and do them in Unity. But if you're doing something very straightforward and simple, like displaying one photo at a time at the texture, and maybe even like some basic frames, and just swapping between those like relatively simple in a simple manner, I think that actually you can get away with as a pure reality kit kind of app. Yeah,
I mean, I think the more we've discussed the possibilities here with photography in this space, the more I'm coming up with some ideas here, because it's going to take time for all of us to, especially those of us that have not been in game development, to really learn to appreciate what you can do with quote unquote spatial computing.
Yeah.
And what the advantages are, not just the gimmicks. Like we talk a lot about gimmicks for fun, but like what's the real advantage? And I think one thing we've come upon here, we've kind of stumbled upon it, even though it seems obvious now in retrospect, is if I want to print stuff, visualizing printed photographs is not easy. It's not like, and if I want to know what it looks like in the place I want to hang it, that's like almost impossible right now. And at least to do so. Yeah, like I don't know any tools that really make that easy right now. But yeah, if I had the headset on, I could just be like, if I'm gonna, cause this stuff's expensive. I want to buy a big print or something. Sometimes that's a lot of money, and I want to make sure it looks good.
Could you imagine if you could do sort of an end-to-end service like that? So you like do a visualizer, you're like, okay, and then you have a little button that says buy, and it'll give you the price. You can even like scale it, right? So if you wanted I wanted it this particular size, maybe I will lock into certain scales or certain dimensions, but like.
Right now, there's lots of services where you can go to like a website or in the app, and you can say, I want to buy a print of this photo. It has different sizes. You can pick frames. You can pick paper choices. And then you can usually you can choose like whether or not you want the printer to color correct or not. You could do that. But the thing you can't really do is visualize it necessarily. Like you have to kind of guess, like, oh, I kind of want this, probably want this paper because it has this kind of, you know, the description of the paper, and maybe you have experience with a certain kind of paper, and then you'll know. But if you're new to it, you know, you don't know what to pick. I think that prints are great for photographers, and they're great for, I think, you know, consumers of the photos, because we mostly do stuff digitally now, but there's nothing quite like having a photo book or something hanging on your wall.
Where should we take our next steps for our next podcast? What should we be exploring that grid mode idea with the focus thing? See if that would work, or the ornament idea. So you would tap into a grid of photos, get the photo with the ornament, with that button, the filter buttons.
There's a bunch of built-in CI filters, and some of them take parameters. So like that could be another option. So I'll see what works. But I think the picker is an obvious thing, so that we can load arbitrary images and then see how that works. And then from there, there's obvious improvements for more filters and controls.
It'll be interesting to see if it does the same. It allows for the same thing as the iPhone simulator, where you can take a bunch of your photos and just drag it into the simulator, and that'll automatically put it into the photo picker. I don't know if that works. If that would work in visionOS, I hope so. Yeah.
I don't know. We'll find out. But and then once you can pick photos, though, then you can start looking at different ways of displaying them. You know, like once you can access the photo library too, like once you get access to the photo library, you can say, maybe I want to show the photos in a sphere around me, like I'm inside the Flash movie looking at a diorama of my photos or something. Because the Flash movie bombed, but that was a cool, weird scene. I gotta tell you, that was weird.
It reminds me of like some of the best of the worst Zack Snyder? Zack Snyder type of movies, where it's just a lot of visual. There's a lot of nice slow-mo and visual set pieces, but not necessarily like a fully fleshed out story.
Yeah, but that particular scene, like the visual effects for it were intentionally this kind of, I don't know, cartoony, uncanny valley diorama like thing. Like it was intentionally done that way, I think. And I thought it was a unique look. Anyway, and they were in like the sphere. You could put your photos in like a sphere. You see that in anime too, haven't you? Like where the character's like in a sphere of like photos.
Yeah.
I haven't seen that.
The Flash.
But I was thinking the X-Men.
Right. When they're in the Cerebro.
Cerebro. There you go. We could make her. See, we're already like in bad app ideas here too. Cerebro would be a good one.
Could you imagine, like, you can just gesture to, like, or actually it would be more like focus. So, like, you would look at something and maybe, like, something takes, like, you can watch all the TV channels you could possibly ever want to watch in a sphere. Oh my goodness. And then, like, focus on one and be like, okay, do a little pinch the zoom to, like, see it and be like, close it, go to the next one, close it. Oh, that's actually not a bad, I mean, it's a horrible idea, but... it's an interesting idea. It'd be the kind of thing that makes for a really good demo. How's that?
Yeah. So for you guys, what do you want to try to do for next time? Let's assume we get a new beta before we have time.
I'm actually intrigued by the video idea, though.
Which video idea?
The spherical
infinite video grid of a million videos.
That's
see how many video streams it takes to break visionOS.
I don't even know how to make a sphere of things in visionOS.
I mean, first we'd have to create the grid, and then in not SphereOS. I guess what you would do is that you create a material that you would have to somehow have the videos playing in the background somewhere or something like that all at once, and then take a material, like apply it to a video. And I think there's such a thing as like a video in Reality Kit. There's a way to apply a video onto a material. Actually, that's not as hard as it sounds. And then invert the material to make sure it's inside instead of outside the sphere. It's inside the sphere.
Yeah.
So it's on the flips. So it's on the interior of the sphere, not the exterior of the 3D of the sphere geometry. And then you position yourself, aka the camera, inside the center of the sphere, for which then you start the experience.
Wow, I need to review game development concepts.
Chris, that's all you.
So Kotaro is going to build a Cerebro video grid for next time in a week.
I don't know if I'm gonna. I don't know if I want to. I am kind of curious about it.
You're gonna look into. I'm
gonna look into the video materials on a geometry. That's actually a doable thing. Like putting a video onto a 3D object in material and then putting it into a reality kit space. Yeah, okay. I could do that. Yeah, that would actually be an interesting
using that game development background there.
Yeah.
And Aaron, is there anything you want to look at?
Game producer, but whatever.
I think simple is best right now.
Yeah, that's what I'm trying to come up with something simple because all the things I've been thinking of are probably too complicated for like quick.
I honestly, I want if you can, Aaron, I just 3 videos, and I just want to see in one scroll view, but outside a window pane. I just want to figure out how we can get videos to be like you have one video in focus that's playing and the other videos that are just stationary, but then you can basically scroll like on a horizontal scroll view, and I just want you to just navigate to one to the other, and I just want the center one playing at all time. But I don't want them behind like a glass plane. I just want them in like virtual space, if that makes sense. Like, they can be in a window pane, but they have to be like, it almost has to be transparent. I don't want to see the plane. I think that's something that I want to get working or want to figure out. I might go there, to be honest. If you don't have time to touch that, because that's part of the thing that I think in general, I want there to be a plane, but I want you to be able to demonstrate ways to break out of the window pane. That's sort of that to me is like the next.
Aren't they also windows though? Aren't they all windows? But
that's the thing. Like, there's a difference. There's like the metaphor of like desktop windows, right? But
yeah,
I want it to be, in order for it to create the immersiveness, at least from a baby step point of view, I want to be able to like break out of that window.
No, I mean, are they still visionOS windows, or are you talking about using like a what's the other thing? The volume,
volumetric. Yeah,
is it a volume? I mean, yeah, would you be using a volume, or are you just using windows that are positioned?
Just windows.
Yeah, okay, I mean, just windows. So basically, you guys are going to look at videos and windows and geometry.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. At least I will be. I don't know what Aaron is.
I don't know. We can try to work together on some stuff because I'm having trouble coming up with something simple that I can work on, because I know with the time that I have, I always
I have very little time to
run out of time on.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
That's okay.
Agreed.
Okay. And we had bad app ideas throughout today, so enjoy that.
I'll throw one more.
Oh, one more.
With your pixel filter, can you just like pixelate the whole world?
Oh, like maybe the vision of the whole world? Yeah, pixelate the world.
Pixelate
That's
everything.
awesome.
That's actually an interesting point.
Can you
right?
do that?
It'd be fun if you just like looked at a thing and then just like pixelated it.
Yeah, I wonder.
I mean,
I have no idea how to do that. visionOS.
Be fun.
I mean,
can it be done?
The question mark I've been having about it.
Maybe
it brings up an interesting point.
In a space, you could probably do it.
Yeah, it would have to be an immersive
space.
Right, because then would you have access to the actual camera feed?
Yeah, that's what I was wondering. Can you pixelate the entire camera feed or part of it?
If you can't, the hack around that is basically putting a sort of like a filter around the whole dimension of your whatever your camera feed is, and making sure like it's locked to the screen or to your camera, and then having the pixel filter, like the CI filter, just fill out the entire window. That's the trick you can do, quote unquote, to get around that problem. The hack you can do to get around that. That might be an interesting hack to test out. To be honest, yeah. Can you cover the entire camera with that pixel and pixel filter?
Yeah,
that actually is a good test. Just take window pane, make sure it expands to the full dimensions of the camera, and then just apply like a semi-transparent pixelated CI filter to that. And then maybe that will pixelate the entire. Maybe you can do something where that will maybe it'll take a snapshot or something of that, and then pixelate, and then maybe apply a pixelated shader to the view.
I don't know. I guess we'll have to find out because we are over time, and I know we have a hard out today. So I guess it's time to wrap it up, Kotaro.
That's all we have time for today. You can learn more about Philly Cocoa at phillycocoa.org. There you'll find links to our Slack group, meetup schedule, and contact info. If you're feeling generous, please leave a review on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or whatever your podcast platform of choice is, and share us with all your developer friends. And one more thing. I'm going to go back to our non-sponsor sponsor. That is getclipdish.com. Made with love in Bucks County, PA, by the way. What is clipdish.com? What is Clipdish, you might ask? It's a delicious app created by AppJohns LLC, where they allow you to basically take recipes from anywhere on the internet
and clip them into the app.
And clip them into the app.
Get all the useful information off them.
That's right. It'll auto organize and extract remove all the nonsense from the web page that you got this recipe from, and then reduce it down to just the core ingredients and instructions. And it'll also allow you to create a grocery list if you need it for then to get said ingredients. You can cook without distractions because they have an iPhone and an iPad version. You could use the iPad version to sort of set it on your kitchen counter while you can do hands-free.
Or you can wear the visionOS goggles and use the iPad version in visionOS while you're using a knife and stuff.
That's not a thing yet.
Not yet, but it probably will be.
I don't know, man.
I'm gonna guess.
Tell
maybe.
Us. Maybe
we don't
Knowing
know.
Them,
we don't know, but I'm guessing.
But they are always on
the cutting edge.
The cutting edge because they also have. Yeah, I see what you did
like
there.
A knife.
They also have a AI chatbot.
They
that will actually allow
little chef guy.
Is there? Did they come up with a name for our chef assistant? Is it just chef assistant?
I thought it was like chef. I don't know. Something
that can recommend you wonderful options of different styles of ramen or other noodle dishes you might have inspirations for. So consider trying that app out. It's a subscription-based app, but it's worth it if what you want to do is make delicious meals for you and your family. So that is our non-sponsor sponsorship of the day.
It's called not a sponsor segment. No, because you're making it sound like they're actually sponsored. No sponsorship is happening here. We just like them.
Yes, agreed.
Not a sponsor. It's the not a sponsor segment. We've had this for a long time now.
Oh no! Oh, it's all falling apart.
That's okay. That's how this podcast goes.
Till next time. Good luck on your own developer journey. We'll cheer for you always. It's almost like low rent Flash.